World.
Do you know what to do if you think you might have COVID-19? Or what to do if you know you've been exposed? Here's how you can help protect your community. Stay home if you're not feeling well, even if you have mild symptoms. If you were in contact with someone who's sick, stay home while you watch for symptoms. Help may be available to get groceries and supplies. Get tested as soon as you can. Free testing may be available. Respond quickly when a contact tracer gets in touch. An interviewer will ask about people you've been in close contact with. You can follow these 3 steps to help find and stop the spread of infections. When everyone in your community does their part, businesses and schools can reopen safely. Find a testing location and learn more at coronavirus.wa.gov.
Rainier Avenue Radio presents All Music, All Day Saturday. Music, All Day Saturday.
This is Edwin Bailey, Bulldog Blues.
Jazz from the Cabinets.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the Cabinets with Big Poppy.
Start Time.
Thanks for tuning in. My name is Paul Pierce.
This is Start Time. Saturdays, all music, all day. Reggae Hour. Hey Fox Night.
Looking for the perfect beat? Yeah, it's the beat of the Fox.
Fresh Juice with D-Money in there.
Myself to the money.
Nice Size Patron.
Taylor Hart.
This is Stencia. The Northwest Rap Gang.
DJ Medina. Chad Cheddar. Northwest Rap Gang.
Sergio Lacour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell them who we talking.
Sea Monster Radio. Mo Jams. It's your jam.
We're live. Welcome to Mo Jam Mondays. This is KZ of KZ Music Media. Caller Goddess for Mo Jam Mondays.
Just my opinion. God is inspiration. All day and all night. Saturdays on RainierAvenueRadio.org. Do you want to represent your city? This year, you can. Seattle residents who are interested in running for office in 2021 can use democracy vouchers to fund their campaigns for the positions of mayor, city council, and city attorney. The city of Seattle offers one-on-one training for candidates at any stage. Learn more about how to run for office by visiting seattle.gov/democracy voucher or by calling 206-727-8855.
You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world. Check us out on social media, Facebook and Instagram, RainierAvenueRadio.world, and on Twitter at Rainier Ave Radio.
Welcome, everyone, for a discussion on resourcing the EJ movement. Who, what, when, where, and why. This 3-day series of Earth Deserves More Than a Day lands today on Earth Day. We are so happy to be part of this collaborative production with Rainier Avenue Radio World, Social Justice Film Institute, and Front and Centered. My name is Sharon Chen, and I work as a resource manager at Front and Centered. Ruby? Ruby, I think you're on mute.
There we go. Sorry. All right, now I got it. This is really exciting. Thanks, Sharon. I'm so happy that we're doing this together. And my name is Ruby Love. I am the organizational strategist and fundraiser with Front and Centered. And Sharon and I together are excited to host this hour with a very, very special we have the privilege and the honor of inviting one of the country's newest leaders in racial justice and environmental justice that you can possibly imagine. His name is Jacari Harris, and I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Jacari, and then I'm actually going to let him tell you a little bit about himself. Jacari is from Tallahassee, Florida, and he is the executive director of the George Floyd Memorial Foundation. And in that role, he came to it because he was a protege of Attorney Ben Crump, who we all know has stood in the gap for so many of our families. Jakari also is started his career in part because he was an intern with our illustrious former Senator and current Vice President, Kamala Harris. And today he is also the author of the book, and Jakari, make sure I get this right, that he is author of a book about himself. It's a memoir about his early years of trouble and challenge to where he is today in success. So I'd like to welcome Jacari W Harris.
Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be on this live with each of you all front and center. It is a pleasure. I am here currently in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Just left the Daunte Wright's funeral after we got the victory for George Floyd getting justice or accountability. So it is a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Jacari. So I want to take just a few moments to share a little bit about how we came together, Jacari, and you can certainly add to this. We early on last year at Front and Centered realized that this was not going to be a year or period after George's death that we would ever forget. And at Front and Centered, we immediately felt that we needed to reach out to you and to reach out to the Family's Memorial Foundation and just show our solidarity and our remembrance of how important George Floyd's life was. And so Front and Centered made what I call a modest gift to the foundation last year. And as all good leaders do, Jacari was so thoughtful in making a personal call to us and asked to just learn about Front and Centered. He said, I've never heard of you. You sent us this gift and we want to know more about you and we want to consider you a partner with us. And that launched our relationship. We, as Front and Centered, we focus on environmental justice, but we feel that racial justice and environmental justice are the same. And so, Jacari, I just want to say to you, what are your thoughts and your words about how we came together?
Definitely, I concur with everything you stated. For me, we came together at the right time. A time where this foundation was just really beginning to launch, a time where we began to launch programs and initiatives, and a time where everyone around me and you and just our communities has had enough with racial disparities and inequalities and just the murders of Black women and men and all people that's done in the hands of police officers. It's not just about Black men and Black women, but anyone who's been murdered in the hands of police officers. Those officers need to be held accountable for their actions, especially if that murder could have been prevented.
Mm-hmm. Yes. As we move into this hour that we have to talk, what I want to do is just have open conversation. Unfortunately, we have a big audience, by the way, Jacari. We've got people around the world listening to us, and I know that you're used to that. But I want to take a moment and just say that we are humbled and we continue to hold the families of not only George Floyd, but the families of every one of our murdered friends and family members in our hearts. And that our work is to make sure that we never forget them and that we know that it is the environment that we live in that actually their death. And so that is a big reason that we felt that it was so important for us to come together and to come together on this earth, because around the world, people are celebrating, that this is our earth and we should take care of it. Yes. A part of our earth is us as human beings. Yeah. And we have not done a good job of taking care of each other, to be really candid.
We haven't at all. And it's time for each of us to be more responsible, to be more alert, and to bring awareness to issues in all communities. I think it starts with the mind. I speak about it in my book. A lot of actions and ideas and just people doing things, it starts with the mindset. You think it can happen. So with that, if we think that we can bring about unity, we know it can happen because we can put our ideas together. If we think we can bring about reform, change, and police brutality, that means it can happen because it was a thought that formed in our mind. So now we have to make it happen through actions and through initiatives.
Yeah. One thing that I wanted to share in terms of what inspired me so much in our partnership and how we've been connecting is the realization that some of the things that have impacted our communities the most are almost like the same thing on a different time scale. So we have police brutality, we have this COVID pandemic, and we have climate change. And each one of those, it's like the same problem to our communities, but on a different time scale. Like climate change is a slow moving one, right? And then the COVID pandemic could be a time lapse show of climate change. And then the police brutality can be seen as even a more acute version of that impact on our communities and our environment. And what I mean by that is what's common for all three of those we've discovered through our dialogue is our communities are hit the worst, they're hit first. The same people that are left behind and don't have the power to speak to the problem are the same ones in all three cases. And there's like this adage in our communities that racial justice is the same as economic justice is the same as environmental justice, which is all a consequence of white supremacy and an extraction mentality. And I just wanted to paint that picture for all of our listeners that's the thing that I think binds our communities and at least these two particular organizations together.
Yes, living in these times where so much is being taken from us. Jakari, how are you thinking of leading in and expressing the vision of the family, knowing what Sharon has just said about how our people are being taken from as opposed to being additive in our communities?
That's a great question. And for me, what I've been doing since day one is really just assessing communities, assessing laws and policies, and listening to not only the Floyd family, but to other families whose loved ones died from police brutality, and to just listening to different community members and leaders and activists and figure out what is the mutual root to the issues and see how we can all come together. I'm a firm believer that through partnerships, many more great things can happen than we can by ourselves individually. So I'm about coming together, being more brainstorming together, being more unified together. And oftentimes when I speak about bringing unity in the community because if the community is on one accord and is unified, then any policies, any laws, any initiatives and programs that we do together as a community can be unified as well. And it just starts to listening to people. People like to be listened to. I like to be listened to. Everyone likes to be listened to at some point in time in their lives. With that, we have to understand that after we listen, we take action.
I like that listening. That's a big part of what Front and Center does as well. In fact, we go around the state of Washington and listen to the people in community because we actually call it citizen science. That's where we get our information to know what our strategies and actions will be. I know that this has been a challenging day. You just came from a survey. What are you hearing people tell you? What are you hearing in those listening opportunities? What are people crying out for?
Overall, people are, of course they want justice, they want accountability, but the root to it all that I've been hearing is reform and laws and policies. That's the root to what I've been hearing. At the end of all the conversations, they say we have to vote. We have to ensure we hold our elected officials accountable. We have to ensure there are laws and policies proposed that will be unified in the House, in the Senate, and of course, in the presidency. So it's the root. And when we tackle the root to issues and not just like for instance, if you get a scratch and you just put a Band-Aid over it, and every time you get a scratch, you put a Band-Aid over it. Well, at some point, you need to put some cream on it to loosen it and to make it heal correctly. So that just goes to roots. At some point, you have to get down to the root of the issues, to the cause of the issues, and work it from the root all the way up. Even if you have to start from page 1, it is okay, because after you get to page 1, you go to page 2, then page 3, and page 4, and you eventually get to the end of the book. So it's starting with the root of the issues and working your way up.
So one of the things that you mentioned is about policy and law advocacy, which is a major portion of the work that Captain Center does here in the state of Washington around environmental and racial justice. What do you see in terms of how you think the foundation is going to engage there? And the reason I ask that is because right now your programs are focused on scholarship, which I know is to advance more young people into the work. What do you see in terms of what might develop in terms of policy and
So that's a great question. And the reason why we're heavily concentrated on like scholarship and education right now is because we've seen millions of young individuals and people. I'm 25 myself, so we've seen millions of young adults more engaged with this movement, because it's no longer a moment. It's no longer just taking pictures or taking videos. It is a movement because people are tired. So we're going to gradually change and go to the next page, I would say. And we're going to be proposing some legislation. We're going to be working closely with representatives and U.S. senators. And right now we're working closely with senators in all states because of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that we need passed, that will ban chokeholds, that will ensure police officers are held accountable, that will assess police departments every single year, and does so many other things that will bring about accountability and equality on all spectrums. So we will be getting more so in the legislation and policies and working with our congressmen and women, and of course, President Biden, and just all of those individuals who want to be a part of the change, who desire to be the change that they wish to see.
Okay. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, I was hoping to ask both of you to share some stories about what you've observed when trying to resource movement. Like, how's that going, and what are you finding are your frustrations?
I think for me, some frustrations that I've had is approaching someone or listening to someone and they're not wanting to listen back. All they want to do is just speak about how they feel, what they think, how they think things should go, and are not willing to work with the leaders of the city, the state leaders, or on a federal level, are not willing to do the work that it takes. It's time for people to walk it like they talk it. And it gets to a point where we get tired of just listening to the same individuals just saying things over and over and not showing up. It is time to sometimes put down your phone and stop tweeting, stop posting, and actually propose new laws, write new policies, and submit them to the appropriate individuals so it can go up to Congress.
Yeah, that's a good question, Sharon. I'm going to go right to the fact that we are experts in our lives. As Black people, as people of color, we know what is best for ourselves, for our lives. And as it comes to resourcing the movement, that means bringing dollars to bear, bringing other resources to bear. And we have lived a very long time with the need for us to put out reports, evaluations, and analysis, and things that actually take up a lot of time of our staff to produce for the philanthropist who, I've always said, when you practice philanthropy, when you practice being a donor, when you practice generosity, you are giving that money. And once that money is gifted, it no longer belongs to you. And so you need to entrust it to those that have the expertise. So that's in terms of what I've seen lately. I see that that has been a challenge. It's beginning to lift, but philanthropy has a long way to go before it actually takes its hands off of these reins that actually doesn't belong to them anymore. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Jakari. That's my take on it. And George Floyd helped to lift that lid.
Yeah, I concur with you. And it's not, George Floyd. I think what I'm saying to George Floyd right now is I believe George Floyd is a leader in the grave. He's leading from the grave, because so many people, individuals, companies all around the country and world have a new outlook on human beings, on humanity, on Black lives, on all lives, and ensuring that it's not just the policies and the laws that are gradually being changed, but it's the well-being and the upkeep of those communities, of those businesses, those minority-owned businesses, and ensure that they have the resources and items that they need to be just as successful. So when I just look at everything, I am truly appreciative that these companies and businesses have decided to make that needed change. And it's sad that it had to be this point in time of a death of George Floyd that roared the entire world, that the companies had to change. But as my mom say, sooner or later, it's going to be turned around, and the sooner or later has come. So things are turning around for all people.
Mm-hmm. I think you guys are right that, in terms of George leading from the grave, certainly he never would have chosen this role. He would, I'm sure, prefer to be alive right now. And one of the outcomes of, how this year has unfolded is that I think people are realizing that racism is real. I mean, it sounds so trite and so dumb to say that, but for a lot of people, I don't think they really accepted that systemic racism was a real thing that impacted people's lives.
Oh, I can attest to that. Definitely.
Right. And so there's a greater awareness and hopefully a motivation for funders to look at how they fund. I mean, one of the things that I've learned being a resource manager, and that's just a fancy word for finding resources for front and centered, is that the way the nonprofit industrial complex works is that foundations that have money put out these grants, right? Mm-hmm. And they decide what types of things they want to fund. And then nonprofits kind of run around trying to find these grant opportunities that might match what they want to work on.
Right.
But the fact that nonprofits are actually the place where there's skills and lived experience to know what work might be most effective doesn't get it. There's a little bit of a feedback loop in that we're now having more and better relationships with foundations, but the workflow is the foundation decides what they want to fund. They put out an opportunity. The nonprofit tries to find one of these that might fit what they want to do. Mm-hmm. But wouldn't it make more sense in terms of the horse in front of the cart, for the nonprofits to say, hey, this is the work we want to do. Right. Here are the opportunities for you to fund.
Well, I think that's one of the things that I find that is so amazing about the formation of the George Floyd Memorial Foundation is that they have laid out the need from the perspective of the foundation and their work, and they are saying essentially to the philanthropic community, we are working on this problem and we need your resources in order to be accomplished in resourcing and addressing the problem. And that's very much the opposite, because in the past, we have chased the dollars, we have chased the opportunities. And that, to me, is not reflective of what true philanthropy is. So I think we might have lost the connection to Jacari. Is that so? Engineering department in the background, I'm wondering. Can you guys send us a note to let us know, and we will just keep talking. Okay, so we are going to just keep talking a little bit. So the other thing I wanted to just mention is that this is day 3 in the series on resourcing not only the environmental justice movement, but in resourcing the movement in general that is going on across our country. And Front and Center has been in the mix for a little over 6 years, and it is every day is a struggle, but every day we are relying upon an amazing group of member organizations from across the state of Washington who have many agendas on top of environmental justice. And they are who make it possible for us to share what we're sharing today, and for us to share what we have shared in the past 2 days about the work that we are doing and the work that so many others are doing across the state of Washington. After our conversation today, in fact, we're going to be moving to a conversation with a team of leaders that are out of Vancouver and Vancouver, Washington, and other parts. I need to look at my notes here of the state that we'll be talking about liberation and environmental justice. Sharon, do you have thoughts on what else is happening?
While Ruby's looking that up, I wanted to talk about what Front and Centered is, because I'm sure many people have heard of it, but maybe don't realize how it works. So Front and Centered is a coalition of many organizations across Washington state. Our member organizations vary in what their missions are. We have some Black churches, we have immigrants' rights groups, we have farm worker groups, we have also some funding groups like Latino Community Fund or Not Ilahi Fund. They really have a vast array of different types of missions. But what the coalition has come together to do is to stand in solidarity when it comes to fighting climate change and other environmental challenges. And what we were talking about earlier, that environmental justice is really intertwined with racial justice, that's a reflection of why all of these organizations have come together. Everyone realizes that they need to pay attention to this, but it's not something that any one organization can do alone. And so my understanding is Front and Centered is actually the largest coalition of POC-led organizations in the Pacific Northwest. Mm-hmm. And I like to describe what the coalition tries to do by saying that shifting power is a key piece of what the coalition needs to do. I mean, Ruby and I can talk about, we do policy and we do capacity building and trainings and education and leadership development and a little bit of advocacy, et cetera. And we have this laundry list of all the activities that the coalition engages in. But at the real base of it is building power, because a lot of the reasons why we have problems, whether it's, again, the police brutality or the disproportionate impacts of a pandemic or climate change, from the get-go is because power is collected in too few in our society. And if we shifted more power to more people, I feel that our society would work a lot better.
I agree. We are getting a note that we're going to take a bit of a commercial break, and we will be back in, I believe, about 60 seconds. So if you can hang with us, we would love for you to continue with our conversation.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world, celebrating 4 years of broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in the interest of South Seattle and surrounding communities. Hey, it's Tony B, and yes, I'm excited to share with you that April 1st is our birthday. This one is our 4th of amplifying the diverse voices in our communities, broadcasting community events, providing award-winning instructional classes to youth and adults, supporting our music communities in all genres and forms, hosting critical conversations, and making sure that we are who you are. 2020 provided us with the opportunities to meet the needs of our communities. Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to have provided our communities with the most comprehensive coverage of how the coronavirus did and continues to impact our communities. And so, for our birthday, on behalf of our amazing staff, volunteers, and show hosts, to all of our contributors, supporters, listeners, and viewers, thank you. Thank you for your support and patience while we were trying to figure out this internet and broadcasting media thing 4 years ago. Thank you to our youth students who took our courses in interdisciplinaries like communication, journalism, multimedia, math and coding, adult digital literacy, social media analytics, beat making, film, photography, and of course, broadcast. Thank you for staying with us even when we made mistakes. You know that when we provide opportunities for you to share your voice, thoughts, issues, concerns, and talents, then we look at that as growing together. As the African proverb says, that is how we will go far. We have grown, and you've grown with us. We have over 80 shows hosted or produced by members of our communities. And all of this during a pandemic. But that is one reason why we do exist. As a true grassroots organization that started out broadcasting out of a study room in the Columbia City Library, we formed alliances with groups like the HCAACD, worked with city government, private developers, and a variety of arts organizations to promote sustainable art space, land acquisition, and ownership for arts organizations. I'm sure many were shocked when we leased 3 properties in the heart of Columbia City, providing our community members with business opportunities for a hair salon, barbershop, recording studio, rental hall, youth concert and celebration space, artist residency, and an art gallery, among the other multiple uses. We are continuing that growth as we move towards ownership of property in the Central District and in land acquisition in South Seattle's Columbia City to preserve the historical and cultural artistic integrity of our communities and ensure that independent voices continue to be heard. So for those of you who have found out about us recently, we thank you on our birthday for allowing us to broadcast our community-created content however and wherever you listen and watch. If you'd like to make a birthday donation to Rainier Avenue Radio, it would be much appreciated. Yes, times are tough, so any amount would be greatly appreciated. You will see the results. Here's how you can donate. You can go to our website at RainierAvenueRadio.world and go to the donate page. You can Venmo at Rainier Avenue Radio. You can send a check to Rainier Avenue Radio, P.O. Box 18774, Seattle, Washington, 98118. You can donate to Shunpike, which is our fiscal agent. Just indicate that your contribution is for Rainier Avenue Radio. Shunpike is the 501c3 nonprofit agency that provides independent art groups like ours in Washington State services, resources, and opportunities. Once again, happy birthday to us at Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We are your community radio station. We will continue to provide you with community-created content, broadcast live from our communities, and of course, we'll bring you high school sports like nobody else can. Join us in celebration. Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
And we're back.
Yeah.
So Jakari's gonna get back on, but he's having a little internet issues right now. But Ruby and I love talking about power. So, oh, awesome, he's back.
He's back. All right, cool.
Nothing wrong with the hotel.
Yeah. Okay. What were you saying, Jacari? Sorry.
I said I apologize. There was something wrong with their hotel's internet.
No
we
worries.
cannot be blamed for bad broadband anywhere. They need to get it together. It needs to be a utility that is available to everyone. See, just one more thing we're talking about an injustice.
Definitely.
Okay. So we thought we would launch into what we were talking about before we took the break, and that is about the power dynamics that exist in the country. And in particular, as we are in the nonprofit sector and trying to resource our movement. Sharon, do you want to pose the question?
Yeah, I think that, it's obvious to anyone that George died because of toxic power dynamics. And I think that, Jakari, you probably have thought about this a lot. And so I wondered if you could talk about what you see, especially moving forward in your foundation's work, and what kind of power dynamics you might be wanting to shift.
Definitely. I think this time is one of reflection. And I say that as well because sometimes we can, keep going and not sitting back and assessing exactly what has happened, what has occurred, and what has understand what can come and what is to come. So I think when it comes to, that power word, in order to, remain relevant, to ensure that there's those policies and those key people at the forefront of the work and key business and organizations, you have to sometimes just reflect and just really figure out what are the missing pieces, what are certain groups doing, what they doing, and what aren't they doing, so you can fill in that gap. And when it comes to power, we all are powerful people. Powerful organizations, powerful companies. And with that, we have to understand that we can't own everything. We can't do everything. So that is why, once again, partnership is so important, because you all at front and center may be stronger in this than we are here. So about you all utilize your resources for this particular initiative, and we do it for this initiative, and we can come together instead of us trying to invest so much resources and funds in this initiative when we know that the way you all have mapped out, it is efficient and effective enough for years to come. So I believe power is about really assessing what has been and what is to come, and ensuring that we're working together, on all levels.
Yeah. Within the family and within those who are, so I should let everyone know, the foundation came together in a very short period of time. And Jakari, you are amazing that you have been able to assemble a board of directors and staff in such a short period of time. Let's talk just a few minutes about the foundation.
Yeah.
And who's on board, who's leading, who's doing what.
Yeah.
You are in charge, but you've got other resources at your beckon. So talk to us a little bit about the foundation and who's there.
Definitely. Well, we are a foundation started by Bridget Floyd, who's the youngest sister of George Floyd, and we're based out of North Carolina, Fayetteville, where George Floyd was born. And we are here to serve as a resource hub for all people, in social awareness, in terms of ending police brutality, and ensuring that civil rights is afforded to all people, not just one particular kind. Although, we have been aligned with being a African American organization. I don't 100% agree with that, because we have people all over the world, all backgrounds, all cultures, who are involved with our work. So I like to tell the news, the media, and just people I meet that we are not one particular type of organization. We are the people's organization. We're listening to the people. We're having them to chime in on our ideas. Sometimes I host calls to get on Instagram Live to listen and to hear and to see what exactly that they're wanting to see within this organization to bring it out the best. Because we want people to be to feel a part of the movement. We want people to feel as if they are at the table, because they really are. Because in order to create a menu, you have to have the chef, you have to have a caterer, you have to have the manager, the waiters. You have to have all these people to create an entire dinner. With that, we have to have all these type of peoples as well and backgrounds to have a true understanding of what it is to be for the people. So with that, we have a diverse board of directors, and we have some openings now that we're going to be filling sometime soon, and just really aiming in on what is it that we critically need to ensure that we are set up for success, not just for today, not for tomorrow, but down the road. A couple people on our board. We have the Honorable Crump, who's the family attorney. He's decided to join our board. We have Attorney Daryl Parks as well. He is a well-known attorney and politician out in the state of Florida. We have a well-known clergy figure to be the voice for churches all over. We have some other dynamic individuals on this board. And in terms of the team, I'm the executive director, and as of right now, because after the trial, I wanted to begin doing a few hires and things of that nature. But right now, we've been doing some contract work, consulting firms, and just with some key people. As you all see, a lot of our presence has really been on social media, really connecting with the audience. We know we are still in the pandemic. The COVID-19 virus is still real, so we're consideration as well, and we've been able to spread the word, share positivity, bring about action items that people can do in the comfort of their home. And people are part of this foundation. They're contributing, they're sharing their ideas, they're tagging us, they're calling, they're writing us, because they feel a part, and we're glad they feel a part because they are a part.
That's wonderful. That's so wonderful. And, that's, again, I want to go back to our partnership. We consider ourselves partners with you.
Yes.
And that you would use us as a resource. And that, when you need something to roll in the state of Washington, you call us. That's the way, that's the way we want to think about it. And, we will obviously be doing the same with you. One of the other things I wanted to think about was, as you are talking with people around the country and around the world, are there particular needs that you see coming forward in terms of how you're going to attract the students that you want to be the scholars? So we start as students, we become scholars in the programs of the foundation, as well as the internships. So we're really, when we saw that, we were very excited, because that means that young people hopefully can pursue their special interests with the support of the foundation.
Definitely, and that is just what we're doing, because that's what was done for me when I was in high school, when I was in undergrad. It was those connections, it was those key opportunities and those moments that someone granted me time. Someone was a listening ear to me. So we love this internship program and scholarship programs and other initiatives that centered around education and youth and young adults. I ensured that there would be opportunities coming out of anything that we involve our students and young adults in. So, one of our interns, his name is Tony Robertson. He is a musician. He's a graphic artist, and we actually, instead of outsourcing and hiring a marketing firm to do graphics and things of that nature, we decided to hire him because his work was of quality. Been doing work for years, so he has a pretty nice deal with us for the Remembrance celebration. We're over the Remembrance celebration this year. That's gonna be held in Minneapolis, and his work is getting out there. And people are calling and asking about him and his work, and who did the graphic, who did this video, and there he has had countless of opportunities, more opportunities than he keep up with, and that's just like one of our other interns. His name is Ryan. He's interested in the criminal justice field. So he said, how can I get involved? How can I, meet Attorney Crump and go to law school and be an attorney for all people? So we've been able to connect him with some great attorneys, some legal experts, area that he's in other areas, so that he can feel as if he's a part of that change that he's wishing to be. So it is really ensuring that there's opportunities and resources for our young adults, for our students, that they can be a resource to someone else.
That's excellent. That's really great. Talk to us just a little bit more about Remembrance Day, just because I don't want people to forget, because it is going to be a celebration of George's life.
Yeah, Remembrance Day we're not calling it an anniversary, we're calling it Remembrance. The hashtag is We Remember George. It's funny you say tell you about it, because we're actually releasing everything about it tomorrow. So you all will be the first.
You better tell us.
Nevertheless, we are holding the Remembrance celebration in Minneapolis on May 23rd through the 25th. We have quite a few different events. We're going to have a fundraising gala that will go towards scholarships and educational resources for students. We're going to have some educational virtual events and in-person events here in the heart of Minneapolis, where we're going to remember George Floyd for the community activist, for the father, for the son, for the brother, for the friend, and for the hard worker that he was to all people.
Excellent. Yes. And, the thing that we latch onto with him and in the Remembrance is that he was an activist.
Yes.
So, what that means is you don't give up. And he didn't give up. He stayed in all the way to the end. And we have to honor him and remember him for that.
Definitely. And something I was sharing with the family the other evening, when you said that George did not give up, he didn't. And as sad and upsetting it is for me to even speak about the video of him being, murdered, he wasn't giving up at that point in time. And I remember the prosecution team said during the trial that George was trying his hardest, that he lifted his head to try to lift up his body just to breathe. So if one like George, who has tried his best not to give up and continue to take those breaths, but eventually those breaths went away, we need to have that same not give up mentality as George.
Exactly. Yes. So, how do you see us at Front and Center participating with you? Kind of, as we close, can we just kind of riff on some ideas, I guess, is my thinking. And Sharon, if you've got ideas too, I think that's what our listeners want to know. It's like, how can we figure out what the connections are and how we might, do things together?
Definitely. I think there are several opportunities for us to do things together. The first thing I think about is actually coming to Washington and just sitting down with you all in the community and seeing, how we can all bridge within in the community. Because as we all know, George Floyd name has resonated in all states, cities.
Yes.
So it's a difference when they see you on TV, they hear your voice, they see your name, but it's a difference when you actually show up and do the work with the people.
So true.
I would definitely want our foundation to work with you all in the state of Washington, where we come to you all and we do some acts of service there, and then we work on seeing we work with you all and some other stations there, and see exactly what are some policies and reform initiatives happen, and who does it start with, who does it end with, and how we can be that gap to help be that change and combat those issues. Although we don't stay in Washington, George Floyd stays in all states. Everyone knows George Floyd. With that, we're gonna do the work that he was committed to do, and we're gonna bring about police reform, ensure there's equality, Sure, there's environmental justice, as we are speaking about earlier, ensuring being good stewards and walking.
Yes.
We're talking.
Yeah, I think the concept of breath really ties all of our work together. George died because he couldn't breathe. This pandemic is all about the breath for people who are dying because their lungs can't take up the oxygen that they need to take up. And when we think about environmental harms, well, that's pollution, not being able to breathe, our communities suffering from high asthma rates, and climate change is the earth itself not being able to breathe. So we have a lot of connections to make, to understand about our situation, and I just really look forward to the collaboration.
Definitely, and as I mentioned earlier, you all are the first individuals I've shared in reference to the Remembrance, and we're really wanting people, to get involved. We have a virtual day of action as well that people can take part of, and I even got a component for the fundraising gala for it to be a virtual type of fundraising gala for those individuals that can't come to Minneapolis. If you're listening and you have a business, you have a company, and or yourself want to be a part of the change and continue to be the change, we ask you to contribute, to the gala. It's towards education resources for students. It's going towards community development. We definitely encourage you to get involved. Everything tomorrow. There's different tickets and sponsorship packages that everyone can take part of, and we want everyone to be a part of this change on May 25th.
All right, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Are there questions that you have of us? I meant to ask you. Sorry.
I don't have any questions. I believe for us, open relationship was what I truly enjoy. That you all check in on me and respond and have that consistent communication, which is great. And that's a fresh breath air for me because it's so much work that I have been doing, that we are doing, that has to be done, that sometimes we can get so consumed and just doesn't take a break. But when I see emails from you, I just have a big smile, like, yes, they're thinking of me, and because they're thinking of me, I'm going to continue to do the good work.
Okay, yeah, we know that being the executive director of something as important as the foundation, it can be a lonely job. And so, don't ever hesitate to reach out to us because we can be here for you. And we're a resource for other, things that you might not think of in terms of where to find access to things that you may need, certainly for the Remembrance, but for anything going forward. And we want to definitely share with young people that we interact with the opportunities that the George Floyd Memorial Foundation provides to young people coming up. I think that's so very, very important.
Definitely, 100%.
Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, Ruby, I was actually interested in having you talk a little bit about the Frontline Response Fund at Front and Center, because I feel like it really bridges a lot of those interconnections between our climate work and police brutality. I mean, it doesn't bridge it so much as sit in that center area where a lot of our people can't take breaths, but it's that intermediate crisis that we are experiencing and was never expected to be part of Front and Center.
Right. Well, the big thing I think that we want to talk about is that brutality exists against BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color in this country at alarming rates as a result of COVID. And, the unexpected have now come into what I call the line of fire. And in that line of fire, people are being brutalized. And so the Frontline Response Fund was started back last year to address the issues of COVID and getting people help in terms of resources because so many were sick and dying. now it has pivoted to what we are seeing today, which is our people need to be vaccinated, and our people need to be vaccinated so that they can begin to live a life of engagement and livelihood that allows them to bring resources back into their families. And so this is a big part of what our work is. It's a big part of what will be our work going forward, because as you know, it is young people who are being attacked now by this disease, by this virus. And it is our BIPOC young people who are suffering the most across the country. There's no place that is exempt. And so that becomes a part of what environmental justice is about. And that is about one's health and wellness. And so we're looking to, we're looking to our funders, just like you, Jakari, to step up and bring the resources to bear, because that's how we get the work done, is by having the resources to bear. And that relates to whether we're educating people, whether we're working on vaccinating people, or whether we are working on getting people to testify in the capital of your particular state. All of those things require resources and funding to accomplish.
And something that I wanted to add on about the Frontline Response Fund is that we go about this consistent with the listening that Jacari mentioned earlier. Yes, the Frontline Response Fund has been about emergency and urgency, but at the same time, we know that the question of where are the gaps is one that is historically unasked, and one whose answer usually impacts our communities the worst. And so one of the first things we invested in out of this fund was a gap analysis, talking about citizen science anyway, a gap analysis of where is there COVID response money available, where is it not available, and where is the need?
Yes. And
that you would think is logical, common sense about how to go about funding and addressing this need, but it's not how most things are done. Vast majority of money is concentrated in King County in Washington State. But where was the most egregious need? Outside. We had farm workers who didn't have a way to wash their hands at the beginning of this pandemic, who didn't even have access to information about what COVID was because they spoke languages other than English. Sex workers, routinely forgotten and impacted. So doing an analysis of where the need is first was a big part of what this was all about. And so there's a difference when you fund organizations like George Floyd Memorial Fund and Front and Centered.
Yes.
Definitely.
So we are coming to the end of our opportunity to talk with you, Jakari, and I want to just again say thank you so very, very much for your taking the time. I know your day is very, very busy. I want you to please express to the family members how much we appreciate the work that they're doing around the country and around the world. It is so needed. There's more programming that's coming out throughout the day. And up next in Conversations and Stories on Environmental Justice and Racial Justice. I hope people will think about tuning in tonight for a special screening of the Condor and the Eagle. And you can just go to our Front and Centered website to find out more and to get connected. So we have had an hour of what I call being in solidarity and being in community. And I appreciate it. Love you much, Jakari. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. You all.
Thank you so much.
Rainier Avenue Radio